Thanks for sitting in. I want to take a moment to introduce Akanda, which is a OpenStack integrated layer 3 through 7 services. A little bit about me. My name is Mark McLean. I'm the CTO and co-founder of Akanda, member of the OpenStack technical committee, was one of the original lead developers on the Akanda project. The Akanda project originally started back at DreamHost, if you were listening to Jonathan's talk prior, back in 2012, and so it grew out, and then late last year the DreamHost team spun it out into a separate company, and so that was how Akanda was born. But one of the things that started originally with Akanda is we had several goals in mind. One of those was to deliver a very simple and elegant solution that was easy without the need for complex SDN controllers. Make it compatible with multiple layer 2 fabrics. What we want to do is enable deployer choice. That way you're not having to install a very monolithic blob SDN controller within your deployment. You have options for which layer 2 you're running. You have options as well within Akanda. We'll talk a little bit about that. As well as Akanda's open source. Like I said earlier, Akanda was born in DreamHost. DreamHost has a very strong open source core to the company, and so Akanda has been Apache 2 licensed since day one. So in our current release, which is Akanda 1.0, we announced it just prior to the summit. It includes a orchestration platform, which we refer to the rug, which is kind of a reference to the Big Lebowski, which was the original. The rug was the original code name for the project. And Akanda supports multi-tenant network services, including routing and load balancing, as well as support for third-party network services. The reason we included support for third-party network services, while we at Akanda will integrate and give you, say, our version of a router or an HA proxy-based load balancer, you have the ability to bring your own software router that can be integrated through our driver, or as well as more recently this week we announced a partnership with Nginx Plus, which integrates and has a driver in Akanda as well. The 1.0 version supports multiple overlays, so Akanda will run on top of the Linux bridge, it will run on top of OVS, it will run on top of OVN, it will run if you're using hierarchical port binding and combined Linux bridge on the hypervisors with Cumulus switching at the top, doing VXLAN offloading. So you can deploy it in a number of different ways. We've tested it in those ways. Akanda interfaces using standard OpenStack APIs for Neutron, Nova, Ceilometer, and Horizon. One of the questions that comes up frequently is, are we doing anything special with Neutron? And the answer is no. We're using a stock Neutron and then have drivers that meet with the traditional layer 3 plugin interface for Neutron, so no secret or special sauce. So if we take a look a little bit at the architecture, what you're going to find is you're going to find your physical layer 2 network, the underlay. If you're running overlays within your network, Akanda has agnostic overlay support. So as I touched on a little bit earlier, from open source versions, you can have something that's based on primarily OVS or Linux Bridge. You have those two choices. We've also tested on a few proprietary overlays, and it works. And then between that, the L2, if you're running overlays, are typically managed by Neutron and ML2 or a plugin. And then you have the traditional OpenStack APIs. And then on top of that, Akanda provides managed services for routing, load balancing, and then coming with support for firewall as a service. And the Akanda management sits alongside of all these. So if we kind of consider what Akanda looks like, or what Neutron looks like without Akanda, this is kind of the traditional diagram you'll see. You'll see multiple layer 2 agents. You'll see a layer 3 agent and DHCP agent and advanced services agents. And what occurs in those deployments is the L3 agent, DHCP agents end up being choke points and single points of failure. Yes, you can have multiple copies of those services running, but even with L3 agents, if you're not running in DVR mode, you end up creating a choke point and for really congestion and within your deployment. So with Akanda, we can actually simplify this story significantly, because we can replace the layer 3 agent, the DHCP agent, and the advanced services agent with a single Akanda service which manages and orchestrates the network services for you. So now time for a demo. So what I first want to point out is, if you look in this window on the right-hand side of the screen, what you'll notice is I'm just tailing the log in the background. This is just the Akanda orchestrator service. You'll notice that it's taking actions and states. For deployment topology, I'm just using a very basic install of OpenStack with Horizon. If you notice, we've got a router here. We've got a we got a VM up. So, and the VMs are just running Ceros configured to use DHCP. And so, if I go in and create a new network, so we go through and create a network. If you notice in the background, the Akanda, the orchestrator is working. It's received the event. It's noticed it. And currently, because the network's not plugged into any routers, if you notice when our topology map, it's not connected. So if we go in to the router and click Add Interface, I can go in, I can select our other network. And if you notice now, and if I go back to our topology view, you'll see that Akanda is working in the background. We now have our 2 tenant networks. So if I want to just kind of show you a real basic demo of just show you how Akanda has wired both networks in for routing, I'm now going to create a new instance on the other network. Oops. And if we go back to our topology view again, you'll see that the instance is up and running. If I click on Open Console, if you notice, it's our oops. The DHCP was automatically configured in the background by listening to the streams. I can ping the other instance. So in this case, what it's doing is it's routing between the two tenants' network segments. And so this is Akanda working in the background. Now, as a deployer, one of the other things that's kind of useful is Akanda has a full CLI command line tools, but also sometimes we've integrated Akanda in with Horizon. And so, like I said, our orchestrator is nicknamed the rug. So if you go down here and click on the rug tag, what you'll see is you'll see a list of the routers, which Akanda is a manage. And so in this case, it's set up for routing, so it's lists the routers that it's managing. The instance name it's running when it was booted, and also you have a couple of actions you can take. So for those who need to go in and fix 1 or 2, or kind of investigate, you have rebuild routers so that you can cause the orchestrator rebuild it. You can place the router in managed mode or unmanaged mode. So in unmanaged mode, it gives you the ability, say, if you're in a testing environment and you want to investigate or you want to look at different configuration options, you can actually make configuration changes, because one of the things that Akanda is watching for underneath the hood is it also watches for config drift. So if you go through and make manual changes and your router's in managed mode, Akanda will go back and reset the configuration state to the proper logical config. But sometimes when you're working in an environment operations mode, you don't want Akanda to replace your handcrafted, so you have the ability to place it in debug mode or in managed mode, or just force a config push onto the router. As well as you can set whole tenants into managed mode or unmanaged mode. This is useful if you have a test tenant, and you can use that to your advantage. Typically what we'll find with deployers is when they're rolling out new versions of the appliance image, they'll have a special tenant they use for testing. Via the rebuild command, you can go through, select which image you want to boot with, and then it will use that to boot with the test image, and that way you can make sure for any compliance testing. Oops. So one of the other things is, so if we're taking a look at the Akanda in the background is also looking for changes. It's constantly watching and keeping the health. If you notice when I've been talking in the background, you'll occasionally see some text scroll by. So what Akanda does is it constantly goes through and checks. And via the driver interface, we're able to have a pluggable way to detect whether the appliance is healthy or not. And so by doing that, it's constantly monitoring. And so if you were to, say, kill an instance or a hypervisor were to die, Akanda will notice that and check and spin up a new version. So what actually is an Akanda? Routing, Akanda supports IPv6, supports standard DHCP and metadata. Akanda also supports BGP, internal BGP, as well as one of the things about Akanda, though, is wanted to be transparent to the user. So as you noticed from the OpenStack interfaces, you couldn't really tell we were using Akanda. The tenant interfaces looked as you would normally expect. All the logical components were the same. There wasn't anything that called out because mainly Akanda is mainly for the backend, from the deployer side. Also, as I said earlier, it's L2 agnostic, so whether you're running OVS in your hypervisor or Linux Bridge in your hypervisor, it will work there. Oops. And so this is kind of the topology for the slides posting later for where we added one in. As far as, and I mentioned the rugs with this auto failure detection and showed you pictures of the CLI and the Horizon support, which is in beta. And then kind of give you an overview of under the hood, how all the components fit together. If you were, say, have L2 agent running Linux Bridge, you could have, those could be talking VLANs to the top of rack. And then from there, the rug's actually listening into a special management network that's connected via the overlay in. So that way the rug communicates with the router. So if you see the two orange boxes are communicating with each other. And so here you have a hardware VTAP. You could have a Cumulus switch running as a VTAP. For example, Horizon integration. So just kind of the recap. Akanda is a 100% open source project. It's been developed at DreamHost since 2012. It's used by thousands of VMs daily. It's in production, so don't be scared off by 1.0. This is actually a production system. We were spun off, like I said, last fall as a separate entity, and so our 1.0 is available now. So the key features, because kind of recap, is it's 100% compatible with Kilo. It runs with a vanilla Kilo installation. Basically routing, basic load balancing, service management, layer 2 agnostic. Down the road, we're going to add extra features as we go through the summer. So join us. We have community. Like I said, it's all available on. It's all open source. So GitHub/Akanda. We have IRC channels. If you want more information on POCs or any kind of testing, info@akanda.io, or you can come find us in our booth over there in T50. So thank you very much.